Sorry about that, everybody. Technical problems, they happen sometimes. Uh, back to where we were. So, we were talking about the Xiongnu and how the Han used kind of a Taoist tactic against them by instead of fighting them directly, they took away their advantage. They took away their land, and that is what allowed them to defeat the Xiongnu. Now, the Xiongnu are going to kind of be the ancestors of other nomadic Central Asian people. So think like the Mongols or the Manchurians. The Xiongnu aren't going away; they're just going to turn into other groups that we'll look at later on. Now, the Han Dynasty also used a lot of economic tactics. So they were also very strong economically. And if you remember thinking about Confucianism, one of the things that you'd want to do is do things economically the right way. And so the Han were really good at that too. Um, so let's take a look at the Han economy. So, like we talked about China and their economy before, the Han are going to continue the Han or the Chinese economic practices. So they are going to be really good at invention and innovation. So they're going to develop a lot of ways of creating new things, or they're going to make better versions of older things. So they're going to create, they created new methods of silk production. They're going to make paper, but they're also going to make they're going to make some simple innovations that are going to make things even better, like simple things. So they're going to make a better crossbow. They're going to make a better horse collar for pulling plows. So even simple things like they're going to make a better crossbow, or they're going to make a better horse collar for horses pulling plows for farming. Even little things are going to make the Han economy grow much faster. And this is usually seen as the start of the Silk Road. So this is another way that we connect the Han to the Romans when we do this document-based question in a couple of weeks. Now, the Han Dynasty is eventually going to collapse. So let's talk about how the Han Dynasty collapses. And there are a number of warning signs for when an empire is about to collapse. One of the warning signs is that they have a lot of expensive military conflicts. One of the rules of history is that wars are expensive. Wars are expensive, and if you have a lot of expensive military conflicts, you're going to go broke. So the Han go broke. At the same time, we see a growing gap between the rich and the poor. So the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And the problem with this is that there are a lot more poor people than rich people. And so if you can't keep the poor people happy, which basically means keeping them fed, if you can't keep them fed, that makes them unhappy. So if you can keep them fed, that keeps the poor people pretty happy. But if the poor people are hungry, that makes them angry. And the hungrier they get, the more likely they are to rebel. And so eventually there was a rebellion. There was a rebellion towards the end of the Han Dynasty. So we get this rebellion called the Yellow Turban Uprising. We get this Yellow Turban Uprising, which was basically poor people upset about the lack of food. The lack or the price of food. And the Han Dynasty managed to stop the rebellion, but it cost a lot to squash this rebellion. And so around the year 220 CE, the Han Dynasty simply couldn't keep up anymore. So the Han Dynasty collapses, and China again splits into pieces. This time I believe there are 4 pieces. Now, the takeaway from all of this is that the Han Dynasty tries to use all of these philosophies together. So, for instance, when we're thinking about squashing a rebellion, that's definitely legalism. Like, there are strict laws and harsh punishments. This is definitely legalism. Like, the Han understood that you can't just have guidelines. You have to have laws and punishments, and definitely the Han used this legalist approach to an extent. It wasn't the only thing they used, like the Qin, but they did understand that you had to have some rules. And so we see that here. But we also see the Confucianism come in here, right? We want to have educated people following a social order, right? Because these people are trained in Confucian thought. So it's not just that they're good at history and philosophy and poetry. It's that they're also studying all of the rules that go along with Confucianism. They understand the roles, they understand the rules for each role, and those are the people we want ruling China. And then when we think about how the Han treated the Xiongnu, we do get a little sense of a Taoist approach here, even though Taoists probably wouldn't be okay with using their philosophy to attack or kill people. There is this sense that, we're using our opponent's strengths against them and taking those things away from them. So the point here when we're talking about the Han Dynasty is that, one, they were very successful. They lasted for over 400 years. And they used all of these Chinese philosophies that were generated during the period of warring states to be successful. And as we continue talking about China past the Han Dynasty, we're going to see these 3 philosophies come come into play again and again, especially Confucianism. So Confucianism is going to be very important for understanding China, but keep in mind these other philosophies, legalism and Taoism, are also going to be around. So we're also going to see those influences as we move forward as well. So our next video is going to now go west, and we're going to take a look at what's going on in Southwest Asia, otherwise known as the Middle East, and kind of looking at the trajectory from Zoroastrianism and Judaism to the start of Christianity and its influence on the Roman Empire. So just like we looked at the Han Dynasty here with the Chinese philosophies, we're going to see the impact of Judaism and Christianity on the Roman Empire and see how they kind of create a new thing in the Mediterranean basin and Southwest Asia. So until then, this is Mr. Nissen signing off.